The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems at once. Captain Sarah Chun felt her blood freeze as the crimson alert filled her ship's bridge. The message was simple, direct, and terrifying. Galactic Council Resolution 4471X. Immediate. Extermination of human species authorized, effective immediately. Ma'am, her communications officer whispered, his voice barely audible above the alarm. It's broadcasting on all frequencies. Every ship, every station, every inhabited world in the galaxy just received this. Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped the command chair. 27 years she'd served in the Terran Defense Force, 27 years of diplomatic missions, trade negotiations, and careful relationship building with the alien species that made up the Galactic Council. All of it had just been swept away in a single, devastating proclamation. How many Council species signed on? She asked, though she dreaded the answer. All of them, came the reply. Zephyrians, Korthax, Veltar, the Crystalline Collective, every single member race, even the peaceful arbiters of Nexus Prime. The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of the distress beacon. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering. The last council session she'd attended just 3 months ago. The other species had been ... different, cold, calculating, like they were studying her. Measuring her, deciding something important. Captain, her tactical officer interrupted, we're detecting massive fleet movements. Zephyrian dreadnoughts dropping out of hyperspace near Earth, Korthax battlecruisers surrounding our outer colonies. They're not wasting time, Sarah's mind raced. Earth's population, 12 billion souls. Human colonies across 43 worlds, another 8 billion. All of them now marked for death by the galaxy's most powerful alliance, but as she stared at the tactical display showing the overwhelming enemy forces, something else caught her attention. Small blips. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Ships that shouldn't exist, appearing from nowhere. Lieutenant Morrison, she called to her sensor operator. What am I looking at? The young officer's face had gone pale. Ma'am, I don't understand these readings. The ships appearing, they're not in any database. The energy signatures they're human, but the technology is decades ahead of anything we have. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's life support. Decades ahead? Ma'am, some of these readings suggest technology that's, well, it's like they're from 100 years in the future. The communications array crackled to life. A voice came through, clear and unmistakably human, but with an accent Sarah had never heard before. This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Shadow Fleet. All human vessels maintain position and await further orders. Council species you have made a grave mistake. Stand down immediately or face the consequences. Sarah's blood ran cold. There was no Admiral Marcus Kane in any human fleet. The Terran Shadow Fleet didn't exist. At least it wasn't supposed to exist. Who is this? She broadcasted on all frequencies. Identify yourself immediately. A pause, then laughter that somehow managed to sound both amused and terrifying. Captain Chun, I suggest you prepare for a very long conversation. The galaxy is about to learn why outlawing humans was the worst decision they ever made. On the tactical display, the mysterious human ships began to move. And as they did, Sarah realized with growing horror that they weren't just advanced, they were moving in perfect formation, like they'd been waiting for exactly this moment, like they'd been preparing for this war for a very long time. / Chapter 2. The Shadows emerged the first. Zephyrian fleet to encounter the Shadow Fleet lasted exactly 17 minutes. Admiral Vexthela had commanded the Zephyrian Third Armada for 47 years. His crystalline form glowed with confidence as his massive, dreadnought stellar wrath approached the human colony of New Geneva. The humans were known for their diplomatic nature, their willingness to negotiate. This would be a simple extermination mission. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, detecting human vessels, approximately 50 ships, unknown classification. Vexthela's primary optical sensors focused on the tactical display. 50 ships against his armada of 300. The humans were either brave or foolish. "Hail them," he ordered. "Give them a chance to surrender." The council prefers clean executions to messy battles. The response came immediately. Not from the human ships, but from something else entirely. "Zephyrian Fleet, this is Colonel Elena Vasquez of the Terran Shadow Fleet. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system, or we will demonstrate why the council should have left us alone." Vexthala S form shimmered with amusement. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 6-1. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift." "Admiral," his sensor operator interrupted. "I'm detecting energy signatures I don't recognize." "The human ships. They're not using any known propulsion or weapon systems." Before Vexthala could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. The human ships didn't just move, they phased, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Energy beams that burned brighter than stars lanced out from their weapons, and Zephyrian shields that had never been breached in 40 years of warfare simply ceased to exist. "Impossible," Vexthala whispered as he watched his flagship sister ship, Crystal Vengeance, dissolve into component atoms. "Where did they get this technology?" The answer came from Colonel Vasquez, her voice carrying an edge of cold fury that made Vexthala's crystalline form tremble. "We didn't get it, Admiral. We built it. We've been building it for the past 200 years, ever since we learned what the Council really thought of us." 200 years? Vexthala's voice cracked. "But humans have only been in space for 80 years. Yes, we know what your records say. We know because we've been feeding you false information for decades. Did you really think we'd trust a galaxy that sees us as nothing more than clever animals?" The Zephyrian fleet was falling apart around him. Ships that had survived countless battles were being destroyed by weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Energy shields, armor plating, even the vacuum of space itself seemed to bend to the human's will. "This is impossible," Vexthala repeated, but his voice was losing strength. "The Council's intelligence services, they monitor everything. Every human ship, every human world. Every human ship you knew about," Vasquez corrected. "Tell me, Admiral, in all your years of monitoring us, did you ever wonder why human exploration ships always traveled alone? Why we never seemed to use our full industrial capacity? Why our colonies always appeared so vulnerable?" The truth hit Vexthala like a physical blow. "Decoy operations, everything we've seen has been exactly what we wanted you to see. While you were watching our primitive ships struggle to reach nearby stars, we were building a fleet that could crush yours without breaking a sweat. While you were monitoring our helpless colonies, we were constructing shipyards in the deep void that could manufacture vessels your species can't even comprehend." Vexthala's tactical display showed the devastating truth. His 300 ship armada was down to fewer than 50 vessels, and the human ships hadn't even sustained damage. They moved like living things, like they were extensions of their crew's minds. "But why?" he asked desperately. "Why hide? Why not reveal your true strength?" "Because we needed you to make the first move. We needed the galaxy to see that you declared war on us, not the other way around. We needed legal justification for what comes next." "What comes next?" Colonel Vasquez's voice carried a note of sadness that somehow made her words even more terrifying. "The Council outlawed humans, Admiral. That means the Terran Accords no longer apply. The Geneva Conventions no longer apply. The Galactic Non-Interference Treaty no longer apply. You've just given us permission to wage war the human way." The last thing Admiral Vexthala saw was a human ship materializing directly in front of his flagship. It was sleek, beautiful, and utterly alien in its design. As his sensors registered energy readings that defied comprehension, he realized with crystalline clarity that the galaxy had just made the worst mistake in its history. The humans hadn't just been hiding their technology, they'd been hiding themselves. Chapter 3, The Truth Unveiled, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the command ship Retribution, watching the debris field that had once been the Zephyrian Third Armada drift silently through space. At 47 years old, she looked exactly like what she was. a career military officer who had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Feeling remorse? Asked the man beside her. Elena turned to face Admiral Marcus Kane, the legendary figure who had supposedly appeared from nowhere to command humanity's secret fleet. Up close, he looked surprisingly ordinary, middle-aged, graying hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. "Should I be?" she asked. "Most people would be. We just destroyed 300 ships and killed over 2 million sentient beings." Elena considered this. Most people didn't spend their childhood on Kepler 442b, watching their parents die because the Council refused to provide medical aid to primitive humans. Marcus nodded slowly. The Kepler incident? That was the first time the Council showed their true colors, wasn't it? One of many times. Elena's voice was flat, emotionless. "Tell me, Admiral Kanan." Yes, I know that's not your real name. How long have we really been preparing for this?" Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Elena, what do you know about the Fermi paradox?" "Old Earth theory." "If the universe is so vast and full of potentially habitable worlds, where are all the aliens?" "We solved that puzzle when we discovered FTL travel and found them. Did we, or did they find us?" Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus gestured toward the debris field. "The Zephyrians have been spacefaring for over 3,000 years, the Korthax for even longer. The Veltar claim to be the oldest species in the galaxy with a civilization spanning 50,000 years. And yet, none of them have technology significantly more advanced than what humans developed in 80 years. So that's impossible. A species with 3,000 years of technological development should be gods compared to us. The fact that they're not means one of two things. Either they're deliberately limiting their advancement, or someone else is." Elena felt a chill creep up her spine. "Someone else?" "Elena, I'm going to tell you something that will fundamentally change how you view the universe. The Council didn't just recently decide to exterminate humanity. They've been planning it. Since the day we achieved FTL travel, every diplomatic mission, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, it was all designed to study us, to understand us, to find the best way to eliminate us. That's impossible. The cultural exchange program has been running for decades. They've integrated human art, music, literature into their societies. Have they? Or have they been cataloging our psychological profiles, our tactical thinking, our social structures? Elena, the Council doesn't see us as a primitive species to be uplifted. They see us as a threat to be eliminated." Marcus activated a holographic display showing a star map of the galaxy. Human colonies appeared as blue dots, Council territories as various other colors. But as the display zoomed out, Elena saw something that made her stomach drop. "We're surrounded," she whispered. "Completely. Every human colony, every human trade route, every human exploration vector, they're all boxed in by Council territory. We've been living in a cage, Elena, a very comfortable, very carefully constructed cage. But why? Why not just destroy us?" When we first achieved FTL, Marcus's expression grew grim. "Because they needed to study us first. You see, humans are what the Council calls an evolutionary anomaly. Most spacefaring species develop predictable patterns of behavior. They become either highly aggressive or highly passive. They focus on either technological advancement or cultural development. They either expand rapidly or remain clustered around their homeworld. And humans? Humans do all of it. We're simultaneously peaceful and warlike, technologically advanced and culturally sophisticated, expansionist and protective of our origins. We're adaptable in ways that make the Council nervous." Elena studied the star map, beginning to understand. "They're afraid of us. Terrified. Because every simulation they've run, every psychological profile they've developed, every cultural analysis they've conducted has led to the same conclusion. If humans are allowed to develop naturally, we'll eventually dominate the galaxy. That's ridiculous. We're one species among dozens, are we?" "Elena, what's the current human population?" 20 billion spread across 43 worlds. "And the growth rate?" "Approximately 4% annually." The Zephyrians have a population of 8 billion across 200 worlds. Growth rate 0.3% annually. The Korthax have 12 billion across 50 worlds. Growth rate -1% annually. Every other council species is either stagnant or declining. Elena felt the pieces clicking together. We're outbreeding them. Massively, but that's not the scary part. The scary part is that we're doing it while simultaneously out-innovating them, out-adapting them, and out-thinking them strategically. Marcus zoomed in on a section of the star map, highlighting a cluster of red dots that Elena had never seen before. What are those? Deep space installations. Automated shipyards, research stations, mining operations. All human-built, all invisible to council sensors. Elena, the reason I know so much about the council's plans is because we've been spying on them for over a century. A century? But humans have only been in space for 80 years. Officially. Unofficially, the first human deep space mission launched in 1953, Project Omega. While the council was watching us struggle to reach our own moon, we were already building installations in the void between stars. Elena sat down heavily in a nearby chair. How many people know about this? About the deep space installations? Maybe 1,000. About the council's true intentions? Maybe 50. About the full scope of what we've been preparing for? Marcus paused. Until today, just 12. And now? Now it doesn't matter. The council has shown their hand. They've declared war on humanity, which means we're free to respond with everything we've built, everything we've prepared, everything we've hidden. Elena looked out at the debris field again, but now she saw it differently. This wasn't the aftermath of a battle, it was the beginning of a war that had been brewing for over a century. What happens now? She asked. Marcus's smile was cold and predatory. Now we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the survival of the human species. They thought they were outlawing a primitive civilization. They were wrong. They just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And we're going to win. Elena, we already have. The council just doesn't know it yet. Chapter 4, The Reckoning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. High Counselor Zethkar of the Veltar Assembly gazed upon the assembled representatives with growing horror. In the past 72 hours, the Council had lost over 3,000 ships, 17 major installations, and countless personnel to what intelligence reports were calling impossible human technology. This is insanity, declared Ambassador Quexrel of the Korthax Empire, his scaled hide rippling with agitation. 72 hours ago, human space forces consisted of perhaps 200 obsolete vessels. Now they're fielding technology that makes our most advanced dreadnoughts look like children's toys. The situation is unprecedented, admitted Director Vextella of Council Intelligence, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion. Our entire understanding of human capabilities was fundamentally flawed. High Counselor Zethkar's compound eyes fixed on the Intelligence Director. Explain. Every human ship we had catalogued, every human installation we had monitored, every human colony we had surveyed, they were all decoys. The humans have been operating a completely separate civilization that we never detected. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Counselor Nimdar of the Peaceful Arbiters raised a translucent appendage. That's impossible. Our surveillance network covers every cubic parsec of inhabited space. There's nowhere to hide an entire civilization. Apparently there is, Vextella replied grimly. The humans have been building installations in the deep void, in the spaces between star systems where we never thought to look. They'd been using technology we don't understand to mask their presence, to feed us false information, to make us believe they were helpless. The chamber erupted in voices, as representatives from dozens of species demanded answers. Zethkar let the chaos continue for several minutes before calling for order. The question now, he announced, is how we respond to this revelation. The humans have proven themselves capable of destroying our fleets with ease. Perhaps it's time to consider negotiations, Negotiations? Quexrol's voice was a furious hiss. They've killed millions of our people. They've destroyed some of our most powerful ships. You want to negotiate with terrorists? They're not terrorists, interrupted a new voice. They're survivors. Every head in the chamber turned toward the speaker. Dr. Kelthara of the Zephyrian Science Division stood at the center of the room, her crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. Explain, Zethkar commanded. I've been analyzing the human response patterns, their tactical choices, their technological capabilities. This isn't random aggression or opportunistic expansion. This is a species that has spent over a century preparing for a war of survival. You're saying they knew about Resolution 4471X in advance? I'm saying they've been expecting something like it for decades. Every action they've taken, every technology they've developed, every strategic position they've established, all been designed around the assumption that the galaxy would eventually try to destroy them. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Counselor Nimdar spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. But why would they think that? We had diplomatic relations with them for decades. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, cooperative scientific projects. Dr. Kelthara's form dimmed, because they were studying us as much as we were studying them, and what they learned made them realize that coexistence was impossible. What do you mean? Counselor, what is the defining characteristic of every species in this chamber? Nimdar considered the question. We're all dovelized. We've moved beyond the primitive need for expansion and conquest. We've learned to live in harmony with our environments and each other. Exactly. We've all reached what we call evolutionary stability. We found our ecological niches and settled into them. We're content with what we have. And the humans are still evolving. They're still growing, still changing, still adapting. They're not content with their current state, and they never will be. They're biologically and psychologically driven to push boundaries, to explore new territories, to overcome challenges. Zethkar's eyes narrowed. You're saying they're inherently aggressive? I'm saying they're inherently dynamic. From their perspective, we're not peaceful civilizations, we're stagnant ones. We're species that have given up on growth, on change, on the future. And they know that in any system where one species is dynamic and all others are static, the dynamic species will eventually dominate. The implications of this statement settled over the chamber like a shroud. Quexrol was the first to voice what they were all thinking. So they decided to strike first? No, Dr. Kelthara replied. They decided to prepare for the inevitable. They knew that eventually we would realize what they represented and try to stop them. So they spent a century getting ready for that moment. High Counselor Zethkar rose from his seat, his form radiating authority. Then we must act decisively. If the humans pose an existential threat to galactic stability, we must use every resource at our disposal to stop them. Counselor, Dr. Kelthara said quietly, it may already be too late for that. Before Zethkar could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. A human face appeared on the central display, middle-aged, calm, with eyes that seemed to look directly at each council member simultaneously. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, the human said. I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Shadow Fleet. I'm broadcasting this message to inform you that the human species formally rejects Resolution 4471X and all authority of the Galactic Council over human affairs. The chamber erupted in outrage, but the human continued speaking. Furthermore, as of this moment, all human worlds are withdrawing from the Galactic Accords. We no longer recognize council jurisdiction over any aspect of human activity. Any council. Vessels found in human space will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. This is unacceptable, Zethkar bellowed. The council represents the will of 47 civilized species. You cannot simply 47 species that just voted to commit genocide, Kane interrupted. 47 species that have spent decades studying us not to understand us, but to find ways to eliminate us. 47 species that have just discovered they picked the wrong target. The display shifted to show tactical readouts that made every council member's blood run cold. Thousands of human ships, positioned throughout the galaxy, installations on uninhabited worlds, facilities hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae, a military infrastructure that dwarfed anything the Council had ever imagined. "This is impossible," Zethkar whispered. "Where did you get the resources?" "The materials, the technology?" Kane's smile was cold. "We built it. We'd been building it for over a century, ever since we realized what kind of galaxy we lived in. Did you think we'd trust our survival to species that see us as animals to be managed? But our surveillance saw exactly what we wanted it to see. Every human ship you monitored, every human colony you surveyed, every human diplomat you negotiated. They were all part of an elaborate deception designed to make you underestimate us." Dr. Kalthara stepped forward. "Admiral Kane, surely there's a way to resolve this peacefully. The Council could reconsider Resolution 4471X. Doctor, 3 days ago, the Council voted unanimously to exterminate every human being in the galaxy. Not to restrict us, not to relocate us, not to limit our expansion, to kill us all. And you think we're going to trust you to reconsider that decision?" The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Councillor Nimdar spoke. "What do you want from us?" Kane's expression didn't change. "Nothing. The time for negotiation ended when you voted to commit genocide. We're not here to make demands or issue ultimatums. We're here to inform you of the new reality, which is, humanity is now a free actor in galactic affairs. We're no longer bound by council law, council treaties, or council authority. We'll go where we want, do what we want, and take what we need. And if any council species objects to our actions, they'll discover just how much we've learned about warfare in the past century." The display showed more tactical data-human fleets moving toward council space, human installations coming online, human colonies beginning rapid expansion. The message was clear. The humans weren't just rejecting council authority. They were preparing to replace it. "This is a declaration of war," Zethkar said flatly. "No," Kane replied. "This is the consequence of your declaration of war. You outlawed humanity, Counselor. You made us outcasts, enemies of galactic civilization. You gave us no choice but to become exactly what you feared we were." "And what is that?" Admiral Kane's smile was sharp as a blade. "The dominant species in the galaxy. The Council outlawed humans, but it was far too late. We were already beyond your control. You just gave us permission to stop pretending otherwise." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, the first reports were coming in of human fleets approaching council space, of installations that had been hidden for decades suddenly revealing themselves, of a species that had been considered primitive and manageable demonstrating capabilities that defied understanding. High Counselor Zethkar sank into his chair, finally understanding the magnitude of what they had done. They hadn't just outlawed a species, they had unleashed one, and it was far too late to stop. What was coming? ##. Epilogue. The new galaxy * 6 months after the Council's declaration *. Ambassador Sarah. Chun stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, watching the construction crews work on humanity's first official embassy in what had once been council space. The massive structure was rising from the surface of Kepler 442b, the same world where her parents had died decades ago when the Council refused to provide medical aid to primitive humans. "The irony isn't lost on thee," said a familiar voice behind her. Sarah turned to see Admiral Marcus Kane approaching, still looking surprisingly ordinary despite commanding the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Which irony?" she asked. "That we're building our embassy on a world where humans once died of neglect, or that their council is now begging us to accept their surrender?" "Both." Kane joined her at the observation window. "Though I was thinking more about the fact that they spent so much time trying to understand us that they never stopped to ask themselves what we might be learning about them." Sarah nodded. In the 6 months since the Council's declaration, humanity had done exactly what Kane had promised. They had become a free actor in galactic affairs, expanding where they chose, taking what they needed, and brushing aside any resistance with technologies that still seemed impossible to most species. The Zephyrians are requesting full autonomy. For their core systems, Sarah reported, they're willing to cede all disputed territories in exchange for guaranteed non-interference. And the Korthax? Complete capitulation. They're offering their entire fleet as tribute and requesting permission to maintain their civilization under human oversight. Kane sighed. They still don't understand, do they? We never wanted to conquer them. We just wanted to be left alone to develop naturally. Maybe, but after decades of being treated like animals in a zoo, can you blame humanity for wanting to turn the tables? Kane was quiet for a long moment, watching the construction crews. Sarah, I need to tell you something. About the Shadow fleet, about the deep space installations, about everything we've built. I'm listening. We're not the only ones. There are other species out there, beyond Council space, that have been watching this entire conflict. Some of them have been in hiding even longer than we have. And they're all wondering the same thing. Sarah felt a familiar chill, which is whether humanity is going to be any different from the Council, whether we're going to create a galaxy where species can develop freely, or whether we're just going to be a different kind of master. And what do you think? Kane turned to face her directly. I think that's the question that will define the next chapter of galactic history. The Council outlawed humans because they feared what we might become. The question now is, were they right to be afraid? Outside the observation window, the first human children born on Kepler 442 since the colony's founding were playing in the settlement's central plaza. They were laughing, running, exploring their world with the boundless curiosity that had once made the Council nervous. Maybe, Sarah said quietly, the answer to that question isn't up to us. Maybe it's up to them, Kane nodded slowly. The next generation, the ones who will inherit the galaxy we've created. The ones who will decide what it means to be human in a universe where humanity is no longer the underdog. They stood together, in comfortable silence, watching the children play and the embassy rise. The Council had outlawed humans, believing they could eliminate a threat before it became too powerful to stop. They had been right about one thing. It was far too late, but as Sarah watched the children explore their new world with wonder and joy, she couldn't help but hope that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would be better for humanity's rise to power. Only time would tell if the Council's fears had been justified, or if humanity would prove to be something better than anyone had imagined.